Hello, my name is Sierra Dalton, and I'm going to be talking to you guys about how emergency management can be considered a profession for my oral report. So, I'm just going to show you really quick what I'm going to be talking to you about. We're going to start off with the basics, like what a profession is, what emergency management is, really simple stuff. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how these two things can be connected. And then I'll give you some examples of professional careers within the emergency management industry. And then finally, I'll talk to you a little bit about how you can get involved if you wish to do so. So, according to Webster, um, a profession can be defined as a calling requiring specialized knowledge and often long and intensive academic preparation, or a principal calling, vocation, or employment. So, think to yourself really quick how those two definitions can be applied to what we've learned so far about emergency management. According to FEMA's website, the definition of emergency management is the managerial function charged with creating the framework within which communities reduce vulnerability to hazards and cope with disasters. I also included for you guys the mission of emergency management, which just discusses how the goal is to prepare for, respond to, and recover from those natural disasters, man made disasters, and terrorist attacks. So, now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how those two are connected, which is the important part. So, FEMA lists 8 principles on their website that are basically 8 good characteristics to have if you wish to be an emergency manager. The first one being comprehensive, which means that emergency managers must be able to take into account things such as all hazards, all phases, all stakeholders, and all impacts relevant to the disaster. Number 2, being progressive. This means that emergency managers anticipate potential future disasters and plan and prepare accordingly to build disaster-resistant communities around them. Number 3, being risk-driven. Emergency managers must use risk management principles when assigning priorities. Number 4, being well integrated. This just means that emergency managers basically must be willing to make that collective effort between all levels of government and all elements of a community. Number 5 ties into number 4 a little bit. Emergency managers must be able to collaborate with those other individuals and organizations around them. Number 6, emergency managers must be able to make a synchronized effort to achieve that common goal, so being coordinated. Number 7, being flexible or using creative approaches when faced with a challenge. And number 8, being professional, which kind of ties us all back to how emergency management can be a career path. The direct quote from the website is that emergency managers value a science and knowledge-based approach based on education, training, experience, ethical practice, public stewardship, and continuous involvement. That statement closely mirrors the definition of profession that we previously talked about, so it kind of just shows how everything comes full circle. Here are a couple of examples of careers in emergency management. I gave you one that you've probably heard of, Homeland Security Officer. Just kind of talks about how they focus on prevention and preparedness, and that they are responsible for things such as intercepting threats and developing response programs and stuff like that. The second one is an emergency management specialist, which may be something you haven't heard of. It is currently like one of the fastest growing career fields within the emergency management industry, and that is because of the because of the increase in national security threats and devastating natural disasters. So they're currently looking for those well-educated people to be emergency management specialists. Now, if you're looking at how to get involved, I know that emergency management may not be the most well-advertised career, but it is definitely doable. I read an article that a man wrote kind of giving his own personal story. He started off as a lifeguard and really liked it, so he became an EMT. He still was not even considering at all a career in emergency management. After he became an EMT, he joined his state-based medical team, which was the Illinois Medical Emergency Response Team, and his commander pulled him aside and said, "Have you ever considered being a emergency manager?" And he said, "Well, I really don't know what that is." So he went home, did some research, looked at some master's programs, ended up going to George Washington University, and then after that was hired at the National Association of County and City Health Officials Public Health Preparedness Team supporting the Medical Reserve Corps program. Kind of a mouthful, But he also talks about how he was hired because of all that experience he had. He started as a lifeguard, worked his way up, and really got to know the emergency management system. And so he basically talks about how the best way to do that is just years of experience. So you can start off volunteering. A good place to start is the National Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster. And after volunteering and making those connections and gaining your experience, it's easier to start looking for those professional careers. So as you can see, emergency management can definitely be considered a career. It's really on the rise right now. It's more prevalent than ever, and this field is really growing, so it's cool to watch. And that is all I have for you. Thank you so much for listening.